Welcome, welcome all to the celebration of the life of Herbie Naumann. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Dan Barrett. I'm one of her 19 grandkids, and I have 4 kiddos myself, making up 4 of her 35 great-grandchildren and counting. So thank you so much for being here. We love you guys, and we love Grandma Herbie. Now, as an honor to Herbie's unique and joyful approach to life, we're going to kick this off with an original song. It was sung to Herbie at her 80th her 80th birthday in Naperville by my parents, Jan and Scott. Scott is one of Herbie's kiddos. So we're going to start off with the original song. Jan and Scott, the mic is yours.
And we sang this to Herbie in a great big circle of friends and loved ones, and many chimed in. And it's a very fun song. Here are 3 stanzas of that song. Everybody here is here to give a cheer for Herbie.
Herbie.
She's our favorite girl that brightens up the world. It's Herbie.
Herbie.
It's all about Herbie, who couldn't be greater. Friends and neighbors, let's celebrate her. We're telling you from the start, she's really in our heart. It's Herbie.
Herbie.
I'm a fan for the artist hand of Herbie.
Herbie.
We all raced for the warm embrace from Herbie.
Herbie.
She even drives a hybrid car, because when it comes to saving gas and the world, there's not a gal today with more to say than Herbie.
Herbie.
And everything she does is always done with love. It's Herbie.
Herbie.
Everything she tries succeeds, and that's no lie. It's Herbie.
Herbie.
She raised her kids with love and honor to be faithful, and we're gonna, you best be believing, we're here on the scene for Herbie.
Herbie.
Hey, thank you. We were all singing along. We were just muted. So thank you for that. And now we're going to have a bit more of a formal presentation. We'll be led by Pastor Tom, who was a pastor for Herbie and Bill for many years at Pleasant Hill Community Church, United Church of Christ. So we're very excited to have Tom here. And then we'll also have a more open session at the end with family sharing, which, spoiler alert, there may be another song. There will be some Gamers Filter history, and there will be you. We want to have you guys, family and friends, share your Herbie memories. You can throw in a song if you like. Now, before I pass it along to Pastor Tom, I wanted to share something that Herbie wrote about you. This is from 2014, in an email that after many of us, family and friends, gathered for her 90th birthday, this is what she writes about us, her friends and family. I am pleased, happy, grateful for our family, amused, amazed, and rather awed, A-W-E-D. Again, this is Herbie writing about us, that I am pleased, happy, grateful for our family, amused, amazed, and rather awed. Now, Herbie, thank you for loving us, and Herbie, we love you, and we are the one in awe of you for your loving, accepting, and joyful heart that we are so blessed to have experienced. Pastor Tom.
Thank you, Dan. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all on this very special day, a time to celebrate one incredible life, the life of Herbie Naumann, who was born into this world on October 14th, 1924, and born into eternal life on March 26th of 2021. We gather in this time, in this place, conscious of God's protective love that surrounds all of us. And we are free in this time to pour out our grief, to face any emptiness that we might have, and to know that God is indeed with us in our sorrows and in our joys. We gather here through the miracles of technology, as God's people. We are conscious of others who have died and of the frailty of our own existence here on earth. And so we come today to comfort, to support one another in our common loss, but most of all to give God thanks as we rejoice and celebrate in the life and the memories of Herbie Naumann. So we gather again through the miracles of this technology to commend to God with thanksgiving the life of Herbie Naumann. I invite you at this time to join me in prayer. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we have come together as your people. We have come together as family and as friends. We have come together as people of faith to thank you for Herbie Naumann, her life, her gifts, her spirit, and her passions for living. We are thankful for Herbie as a mother, a spouse, a person of faith, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. We are thankful for all the gifts and blessings and talents that Herbie so freely shared with all of us and with the world. So as we worship today, as we remember and share stories, we do so with gratitude, for we have been blessed and we have been touched, and we are all brought even closer together as family and friends in our shared memories and love for Herbie Naumann. Be with us in this time, we pray. Amen. And we begin our service today with scripture. We will be reading Romans 12, verses 9 through 13. It is the marks of a true Christian. Paul writes, "Let love be genuine, hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with mutual affection, outdo one another in showing honor, do not lag in zeal, be ardent in spirit, serve the Lord, rejoice in hope, be patient in suffering, persevere in prayer, contribute to the needs of the saints, and extend hospitality to the strangers." Here ends the reading from Romans. And at this time, I turn it over to Gary Barrett, Herbie's oldest son.
More than one professor of literature told us students that every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The statement was so obvious that there had to be more to it. First, where are the points of transition? Then, what caused those transitions? The beginning of Mom's story, October 14th, 1924. It was the roaring 20s, and times were good. Her father was one of 5 children, and his father one of 20. Her mother was from a well-to-do family of 12 children. Mom was the middle child of 3. Things turned a little sour when the Ripperger clan fell on hard times, but Mom was too young to notice. And then came the Great Depression. Mom's stories of her childhood never reflected deprivation, hunger, or insecurity. The scenes she described were not the dingy ones we associate with the Depression, as described in history texts. No, they were vibrant, full of color. Grandpa remained employed through those years, though his income required adaptation. He was, above all, a resourceful man, able to make do with what he had. All right, it was a kit from Sears, but still, he built his own house that still stands. His creative bent was an important attribute passed on to Mom. What I remember from Mom's recollections were her stories of playing in the farmer's field across the road, building things, adventures with her neighborhood friends, riding in Aunt Ruth's open car. She had an active life. She did well in school, academically, athletically, and creatively. As a father of girls, I could empathize with her revelation once that there was, even back then, a clique of popular girls. She was not included among them and felt intimidated by them, even many years later, well into adulthood. Her stories never seemed to mention anything about singing, however. Mom's college years were 1942 to 1946. Those were abnormal times for college life. Most students were off fighting World War II. The few left around had the pick of the lot. Conversely, for women, pickings were slim. Bill Barrett scored a big win, the class valedictorian. For Mom, she may have considered herself lucky to have snagged a guy given the competition, especially a guy who was athletic, smart, and resourceful enough to work his way through college in 3 years. She never described her pairing in those terms, however, and as it turned out, she could have done a lot better, though lucky for us, she didn't. Mom married Bill Barrett in 1947. After Dad completed seminary, he was assigned to the EUB mission in post-war Japan. Mom, Dad, and I left the US in 1950. The next years were spent in Tokyo for intense language training. The real work followed in Chiba. Mom's resilience and creativity were put to good use in keeping the family going in the face of huge cultural and living condition challenges. She also picked up the language by informal means, and it was strong enough to give her a supporting role in her husband's mission. In fact, she considered it her mission as well, and as time would tell, she was the one more dedicated to the spirit of that mission. Two more sons came, and then a daughter, and then it was time for a furlough to the US, a time for a missionary to study, raise funds, and recommit, a duration of 1 year normally. During that year, Terry was found to have dislocated hips, a condition requiring correction that would necessitate a delay in returning to Japan for an indefinite period. After 6 months of delay, Dad felt compelled to return to his job, leaving Mom alone with family duties and the job of seeing to Terry's continued care. Here ends the beginning of Mom's story. On to the middle. A great example of Mom's creativity is in how she provided Terry with her need for locomotion. Terry was ensconced in a cast from the waist down, her hips set out at an impossible 180 degrees. Plywood, cut to the shape of her oddly shaped body, with caster wheels, padding, and bumpers, did the trick. Terry and Scott frequently paired off in play, so Mom created one for Scott too. For Halloween, Mom made our costumes. Mine was that of an ugly witch with a carrot nose, a hideously painted face mask, a black gown, and a pointed wide-brimmed hat. It made a big hit at school, and nobody could guess who it was underneath. We 3 boys were allowed to roam the neighborhood. 3 quick whistle blows were our sign to return home. During his year away from the family, Dad could not resist being attracted to the teenage girl next door. One thing led to another, and then we returned to Japan, and then Mom found out. It took almost 4 years to come to a head. During that time, Mom continued to support Dad's mission, even performing some of the duties that were properly his. She kept her mounting problems inside for most of that time, hoping to resolve them herself. Eventually, she recognized the futility of that and confided in some other missionaries, at which point the proverbial things hit the proverbial fan. Mom and we kids returned to the U.S., and Dad was fired from his mission. Formal divorce proceedings followed several months later. In 1962, a stigma was attached to divorce, especially when involving clergy. We kids were instructed to keep mum about it. Mom buckled down and saw to providing for her family, first by tapping into her graphic arts talents, then by securing a job with the college as recorder, then registrar. Through it all, we kids were largely unaware of her emotional trauma. Significantly, Mom never disparaged Dad, at least in front of us. I had a photo album where I had placed Dad's photo in a prominent place. Mom never revealed to me the feelings that must have generated. Once we kids found out that Dad had settled in nearby Downers Grove, Mom did nothing to discourage us from visiting him. Even when the two of them were brought together as spectators at our cross-country meets, she managed to be civil toward him, even cordial, even when his new wife was with him. Mom found another partner and in 1968 married Bill Naumann, and our family got much larger. Now, Mom's job was to keep a much larger family running, a family whose members had been brought up differently. It worked. The family prospered. Eventually, we kids dispersed, found means to support ourselves, found mates, and embarked on our separate lives. Mom's artistic endeavors had had objective goals and had led to material results. Now, she began to turn her attention to figure drawing with much more subjective results. Her specialty was well received. She began teaching at the college, became a member of a group of drawers, and started to display her work to the public. All were impressed. Semi-retirement and full retirement notwithstanding, she continued her figure drawing activity. Her works graced galleries, shops, and our homes. About 20 years ago, our parents moved to Uplands. They enjoyed their independent living in the company of people who shared their interests, concerns, and world outlook. Years passed, and they continued to live productive lives. The middle of Mom's life story transitioned to the end around the time of the total eclipse of 2017, although that event was merely peripheral. Mom began a descent into a deepening spiral of depression, one that she could not be talked out of or reasoned through. She had to work it through herself. It took a long time. When she emerged, she was not fully back to her normal self. Hard to put a finger on it. Maybe a certain wariness. She had always been concerned about the world we live in. Now it seemed that a degree of pessimism had seeped in. She disapproved of how some things were shaping up, was more verbal about it, and less tolerant of opposing views. She was disappointed by her inability to do anything about it. Another source of discouragement for her was one of the things she was so passionate about, her art. She felt that it had not gained the level of success, of acclaim that she had hoped for. It had not been a commercial success. This, despite the countless lives enriched by it, despite the scores of art students inspired by her teaching and her example. The last year of her life was not a good one. It began with the loss of Bill Sr. and the ability to live independently. Medical conditions, treatments, and the loss of control over the way she lived followed. Surrounded by her art and some family, she died on March 26. Returning now to the professors of literature so good at posing difficult questions, they would invariably ask, what does this story say about lasting human worth? Well, what about Mom's story? Few people achieve recognition beyond their small circles. Few people develop cures for disease, author great works, paint the Sistine Chapel, lead nations, invent breakthroughs, walk on the moon, or set world records. But embodying lasting human worth isn't restricted to just the great. The most dispiriting thing that I heard Mom say during her closing years was that she felt a failure, that she had not accomplished whatever was her purpose in life. I was shocked by this assessment. Are you kidding? I wanted to say. Taking just one aspect, look at your participation in the cycle of life. Your children, all with successful lives themselves. Your grandchildren, all launched in successful lives as well. And your many great-grandchildren, all off to a great start. That wasn't enough, apparently. So what did she leave us? What values did she embody? Commitment and responsibility. One implies the other. Her commitment to the mission field, despite mounting problems antithetical to its spirit and its teachings, her responsibility to her family, despite increased workload in having to do it alone, exemplify these traits of human value. When you commit to something, you're responsible to honor that commitment. Unfortunately, she never seemed to apply that to being on time. Peacemaker and forgiveness. Again, one implies the other. Years of endeavoring to save her first marriage give evidence to this. Or on a more mundane level, what do you do to address sibling conflict over unequal access to and consumption of ice cream? Well, supply each child with a half gallon of it and find place in the freezer for it. Mistakes and forgiveness. Mom did not hold mistakes over us. Making mistakes is part of living and an invaluable means to learning. I was her first to drive the family car. I was the first to wreck it. She didn't make me feel a sinner when it happened, and she never held it over me. Self-development, an essential component of raising children. Mom kept us insulated from the problems of her first marriage, both before and after the fact, thereby encouraging our development in an environment free from that stress. She made a conscious effort to not influence our feelings about our biological father, but rather let them develop naturally. She freed us to develop our own interests and tolerated the resultant creative disorder, such as a room full of paper trails when I was into building roller coasters, or little paper bus stop signs pasted to the baseboards all over the house when I was into driving my buses. The leash on us was long, and we could expand our horizons by exploring our environment. Riding my bike halfway across Chiba Prefecture at age 11, or in Tokyo traffic to get to school, or into a Tokyo Bay landfay to build roads for our toy cars. Well, maybe some of that was risky, I guess. Honesty toward others and toward self. The former is obvious, less so the latter. The need for realistic self-assessment, and then the conduct to remain consistent. Mom encouraged it in us, and she embodied it in herself. The professor's question about what a story says about lasting human worth elicits a subjective response. I'm not sure that we college kids fully understood that. There's no one correct answer. I've tried to give my answer here. I hope that each of us can find in Mom's life sustenance for a good life and a life worth living.
So next we have up Uncle Rex. The floor is yours.
Thank you. We each have our own special relationship with Mom. I'd like to share some meaningful times that I spent with her. I started my long career in newspaper delivery when I was only 10 years old. On Sundays, the Tribune was always at least doubled in size. Around Christmas, each copy got even larger and often weighed several pounds. On really cold Sundays, or when the snow was too deep, Mom would crawl out of bed at dawn and drive me around the 20 blocks that covered my route of over 70 papers. Mom had very little time to spare, but she never complained. In high school, after waking early, preparing our lunches, and helping get breakfast, Mom would often drive me to school. I could have walked, and probably should have walked. Mom never complained. At the time, I took it all for granted. But in my later years, it has fascinated me that she would have sacrificed her limited free time to have done those special things for me. In May of 1997, I got my chance to do something special for Mom. I had been traveling to Europe for business since 1981. In those travels, I had been to Paris over 24 times. I knew the city pretty well, as I always became a tourist as soon as I concluded my business. In spite of her worldwide travels, our artist Mom had never been to Paris. I told her that I had a week to kill between toy shows, and I'd love to show her around Paris. It didn't take her long to decide to make the trip. I picked her up at the Brussels, Belgium airport after a show, and we immediately headed off to Paris. Mom came equipped with a list of places she wanted to see. We decided that we would alternate days in Paris with days outside of Paris. Many of her choices were all new to me, and I was eager to see new sights. We stayed on the left bank in a nice hotel. We had barely checked in that afternoon when a jet-lagged 72-year-old Herbie said, "Let's go." We started walking to our destination of Notre Dame. We walked and talked and talked and walked. And of course enjoyed the magnificence that is Notre Dame. The next 5 days we attacked Paris in earnest. It's a walking city, so we did a lot of walking and enjoyed all of our varied city views. When our destination was too far away, we took the metro. We covered most of the great art museums as well as some of the other famous parks and structures. Mom's list was long and her energy was boundless. On our days out of town, we explored Versailles and saw the great stained glass windows of the Chartres Cathedral. On our final day, we went to the old art colony of Montmartre. We got there in time to see the lights of Paris switch on at dusk. The view from the hill overlooking the city was breathtaking. Mom said that had we come there on day one, she would have insisted on coming there every evening. We took the funicular off the hill and rode the metro to the Place de la Concorde at the base of the Champs-Élysées. I checked the metro map and saw that we could catch the train home at the Arc de Triomphe at the other end of the Champs-Élysées. We set out for the Arc about 2 miles away. We enjoyed the crowds and window shopping. When we got to the Arc, it was getting late. We sat there for a while and then decided to walk a little more. We ended up walking all the way back to the Place de la Concorde before we boarded the metro home. Mom seemed to have endless energy when I was a kid, and it was still there when she was in her 70s. We had a wonderful and very special time together. As a roommate, I even grew accustomed to her laundry draped around the place. During our travels, we rarely passed up a good pastry shop. Each day we finished with dinner at a random cafe. Mom finally got to see the art and sights that make Paris, well, Paris. Seeing the city through her eyes rekindled my love of Paris. I couldn't wait for my next trip there as a pure tourist and explore some more. Mom was special. She always made me feel very special. I will miss my special mom. Thank you. And now back to Pastor Tom.
Thank you very much. Well, it's really an honor and a joy for me to be asked to be a part of this wonderful celebration of Herbie's life, to see so many familiar faces in the over 70 people that are now part of this celebration today. It's brought back a lot of memories for me, a lot of fantastic and wonderful memories of Herbie and of course of Bill and the entire Pleasant Hill community. The words I'd like to share today really take place in Pleasant Hill, because I think many of you know that I was the pastor at the Pleasant Hill Community Church from 2002 until 2013. And so I arrived in Pleasant Hill just a short time after Bill and Herbie had arrived in 2001. And if you will remember that toward the end of 2001, our world had radically changed in September 11th of 2001, and it had gotten quite unstable and perhaps even a little dark for many of us and for many people in the world. Very concerning time. And I've often thought that when we live our lives and we live in a world that has much fear and uncertainty in it, as it certainly does now with our pandemic and other world problems, the temptation for many of us is to curl up in fear and have a palette, an artist's palette that is only black and white, that bringing in the boundaries of the world to try to simplify the world and just keep it yes or no, black and white, is a temptation, I think, for a lot of people in the world. But Herbie, as I thought, as I talked with her family about her life, as I remembered her presence in Pleasant Hill, I have to say that Herbie never gave in to the black and white. In fact, I think she lived her life in Technicolor. And that term came into my mind as I thought about her on many levels. And so I wanted to make sure when I used the word Technicolor, what I was actually referring to. And so I want to share with you just a very, very brief definition of Technicolor, which I think rings true for Herbie. What is Technicolor? Whether you knew it at the time or not, you probably have seen a Technicolor movie. If you're trying to recall an example, just think color, color, color. Technicolor changed the course of cinema forever with bright and bold visuals saturated to the point of near surreality, surreal. Technicolor is surreal. And it seems to me that on many levels, Herbie lived her life both literally and figuratively as an expression of the color, of the joy of this world, and the way she saw it, the way she engaged with it, and the way she interpreted it through her artwork and through her sketches and through her cake making and her carving of candles and so many other expressions in her life that were the expression of this vibrancy that she had at every moment. As many of you know better than I do, she was a world traveler to Japan and Europe and Lebanon and Istanbul and other places. But ironically, in Cumberland County, Tennessee. For those of you who are not familiar with Cumberland County, Tennessee, it is a very rural area. It is perhaps a little black and white in its experience of the world. Having lived there 11 years when I was pastor there, I found it to be to have its own charms. But when I think of Herbie moving into Cumberland County, I can only say that she brought with her these wild colors and expressions of life that were unbelievably refreshing, not only to Cumberland County, but certainly to Pleasant Hill, the little hamlet where we all lived and played and worshiped on a daily basis. So she really brought this joy to this very rural little corner of the world. and shared that joy and that expression and those passions very well and very widely in that county, often sharing some of her art in the community and in the city of Crossville, which was the nearby town. I would like to share one just brief memory that I have, which I think as I thought about this memory, some of you who were there will remember. But as I thought about it, I had a number of memories about this event. It was the memorial service for her sister Doris that I facilitated and led in the church there at Pleasant Hill. And the bulk of that service was made up of Herbie sharing memories about Doris. And it was, as I think back about that service, it was very unusual. It was very unique. And it was, in a sense, as I remember Herbie, it was quintessential Herbie talking at length about her sister, and talking at length about her sister with details and stories about her life and remembrances about Doris. Clearly, Herbie was working through her own grief and the loss of her sister. But as we who were gathered there watched and listened to her quite lengthy talk about her sister, what we also understood, and I talked with some in the church about this afterwards, we also understood that we were getting the heart of Herbie, a heart that at that very moment was pained and that was clearly struggling with grief, but also Herbie who saw people's lives, experienced people's lives, paid attention to the details of her own life and others' lives, paid attention to the details, the minute details of every day, of God's creation, of the relationships she was in, of her family and her children and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so what we got at that time was a flowing forth of Herbie Naumann, really revealing a lot about her sister, but even more about herself. She was a very, very sensitive, very passionate, very conscientious person who really celebrated individuality of her own life. She pursued her own path and wanted everyone else to pursue their own path. And so she celebrated people's uniqueness, people's gifts and talents, and always saw the best in people. And through her own life, I think encouraged people to follow their passions and live life to the fullest. So for me, I remember that day very, very clearly. Because what we saw, strangely enough, was not only a lot about her sister Doris, but we learned and saw on display so much of the heart of Herbie Naumann, at that point bleeding for her sister that she loved very much and had much grief over. But in the same time and at that same time and through that same process, just revealing her her ability to recognize and pay attention to the details of people's lives and the details and the beauty of this world and how people live out their lives in what, again, sometimes is a black and white world that we would hope is more simple. But Herbie seemed to understand that life is beautifully messy, and that mess, that beautiful mess that we call life, should be celebrated in all of its wonder and all of its technicolor. So I really have wonderful memories of Herbie and Bill also. And I remember being over to their house and having very, very broad conversations about God and faith and world religions. And I remember in particular, I was at their house one afternoon for a little over 2 hours, which goes against every pastoral rule I've ever had. You don't stay at 2 hours at people's houses. But with Herbie and Bill, I found myself really overwhelmed by their wisdom, their travels, their passions. And when it came to talking about religion, frankly, I felt like I was out of my element because they were so filled with questions and knowledge, and they were just always ready to talk and ask questions and share what they had experienced throughout the world and in their own lives and their own travel. So for me, Herbie was a beautiful soul who not only wore it in her flamboyance and her clothes and her hairpins, in her scarves, in her creations, in her cakes, but her flamboyance and the color of her life was just revealed in her passions and her love for this world and for her family. And I think I talk about Psalm 1 as one bookend in the book of Psalms, and Psalm 150 is the other end. Psalm 1 is about happy are those who follow the Lord. And Psalm 150 is about just this absolute ending praise for God. And I think in some ways that Herbie lived that book of Psalms, both ends and everything in between, the joys of life, the struggles of life, the experiences of life. And she knew and loved her God, who she refused to put in a box, just as she refused to put herself or anyone else that she knew and loved in the world. Follow your passion, be your bee, and live life to the fullest with all its color. That, as I understand and as I experienced, was Herbie Naumann, a faithful church member, but a more faithful community member and lover of humanity, lover of God, and lover of her life here in this world. And so we have all have been blessed, and I certainly feel blessed to be a part of this great day with all of you so that we can celebrate Herbie's life. Thanks be to God for the gifts that she shared for and with all of us. Amen. At this time, I invite everyone who is with us today to join me in praying the prayer that Jesus Christ has taught us to pray together, the Lord's Prayer with inclusive language. Let us pray. Our Mother and Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And now I pass it over to Karen Kinney, Herbie's niece, who will be sharing from the prophet.
Thank you, Pastor Tom. That was just beautiful about her. I would like to share some thoughts on family that are adapted from the prophet by Khalil Gibran. Your family is your needs answered. Family is your field, which you sow with love and reap with thanksgiving. When your family speaks their mind, you fear not the nay in your own mind, nor do you withhold the I. And let your best be for your family. If your family must know the ebb of your tide, let them know its floods also. For it is your family to fill your need, but not your emptiness. And in the sweetness of family, let there be laughter and sharing of pleasures. For in the dew of little things, the heart finds its morning and is refreshed. My mother, Monty, was Herbie's younger sister. My earliest memory of Aunt Herbie is when the family was visiting Naperville on sabbatical from Japan in the 50s. I vividly remember meeting Terry with her legs in a cast. We were both around 1.5 to 2 years old, and I remember being bewildered at how a young girl like myself could live while having her legs bound, and imagining what her mother would have to do to accommodate that. And that wondering about Aunt Herbie has continued throughout my life. When my two sisters, Donna and Robin, and I were young, my family moved from Michigan to Florida, to Louisiana, to Ohio, back to Florida, and then finally settled in Naperville. Herbie loaded her kids in their Rambler, and they came to visit us wherever we lived. I was in awe of how she could be a single working mother and just take off with 4 kids on a vacation, how she could let her kids pursue whatever they wanted, and then later in Naperville, how she could keep control of 3 boys who took apart and rebuilt cars in their garage and had all sorts of people over for car races on their elaborate track in the basement. I was in awe that a family without a father could have such interesting and apparently self-directed people. And then she incorporated 4 more kids and a husband into their house. I wondered how she could create so many bedrooms for them all, and knew that they did have rules, but I also saw so much life coming out of the 4 walls and wondered what she did that allowed everyone so much freedom and independence. I couldn't understand how a group of teenage boys could travel through Europe and the Middle East on their own without the parents. I watched the kids develop their own paths. They looked to me to have self-assurance, were friendly, popular at school, good looking, talented and clever, and yet they still remained a family. She had her life too, art shows, book clubs, drawing, painting, working, and I saw how she solved problems using her hands in creative ways. Her clothes were wild and beautiful. She was a woman of the world. She encouraged me and supported others. She loved seeing independent streaks in her grandchildren. She and Bill remembered our birthdays and important moments in my family. As I grew older and left home, I saw her mainly on holidays. What I valued most was that she always thoughtfully responded to my letters. She helped me see beyond my situation that life was something to pursue and that the search was important. When she and Bill moved to Uplands, I tried to visit for big events. I heard stories of her kids, and their kids. I saw her love and pride in her and Bill's family. In thinking about what to say today, I found the essence of her love for her family in another section of the prophet on children, which I will close with. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward nor tarries with yesterday. Dear Aunt Herbie, thank you for sharing your life with us. You have given us the gifts of your spirit, energy, curiosity, and appreciation for the uniqueness in each of us. Your undying love for your wide-ranging family, your vulnerabilities, talents, humor, and brilliance. You have shown me that life is so much more than I imagined as a younger person, and how to meet it standing straight and facing forward. Thank you. Wait. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it on to my dear cousin Scott, who was always so cool, cute and cool when we were young. Here you go, Scott.
Not now that I'm old. Thank you, Karen. First, I'd like to thank Dan, Christy, and Larkin for putting together this to make this all happen. It was a wonderful gesture of love for Grandma Herbie, and we all appreciate it. So many did so much in so many ways, but I'd especially like to thank Terai for her incredible help to Mom as no one else could give. And of course, Terai for his medical expertise during this. And to Larkin, who got the 4 Barretts to Pleasant Hill at the crucial time. The story I'll share today is one that most of you have not heard because it is the story of Mom's last few days, hours, and moments. Janela and I, along with others, were able to spend a few days with her. And as I sat by her bedside over the course of days, along with various combinations of others, although her eyes were not often open and she seldom talked, she was still with us, and I felt we were able to communicate. On that Wednesday morning, I found myself sitting on the bed beside my mom with Terry in her very quiet room, and suddenly I had so much to share. I held Mom's hand and talked to her for the longest time, and it felt so good. I told her a story I so wanted her to know. I told her the story of her life through my eyes. I spoke about her from my young childhood in Japan and the early years in Naperville. I shared the brilliant and life-changing, for all of us, marriage to Bill Sr., Bill Naumann, and the crazy worldwide adventure. I spoke about the middle years as we all grew up and departed on our own life adventures. I marveled at her incredible artistic talent as an accomplished artist and how she stood so proudly at the opening of one of her carousel art shows. I spoke of her as my mother, as a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother, and how fondly all the younger generations revered Grandma Herbie. I reminded her of all her accomplishments and how proud she should be. I spoke of so many memories that we shared and thanked her for her loyalty, her hard work, her dedication to me and our family, her huge, loving family, her importance to us all, and stressed what a truly wonderful life she had. My story of her life through my eyes included happy tales about many of you and the years of being siblings and family. I was able to give her back my deepest thanks, and I hope she heard me. As I went on and on, sometimes there would be humor, like, what was she thinking? Hauling the family all over the world and leaving some of us alone in Europe at age 15 to 17. As my stories went on, sometimes I would feel a slight squeeze of my hand or something like that, and I knew she sure could hear me. Then on Friday morning, Jan, Terry, Ginger, and I again joined Mom, and the 4 of us spoke quietly and lovingly to Grandma Herbie for many hours. I read a story I remember requesting quite often growing up, and I'm sure she never tired of reading it. I requested a Grimm's fairy tale, or I read a Grimm's fairy tale about the story of Frederick and Catherine. Terry read dear stories composed by Mom at various stages in her life, and we sang old family songs. As the hours went on, we realized that her breathing was becoming very shallow, and we knew what that meant. As Terry, comforted by Ginger, was lovingly stroking Mom's hair, and I was holding Mom's hand, we said our final goodbyes, and she took her last breath. It's an experience I'm so thankful for that I share with all of you because you'd want to know how peaceful she was. And I hope how fulfilled she felt with pride of her life's accomplishments. And those finger squeezes were her way of telling me and us all that she knew she had a wonderful life. Thank you. And now for my dear little sister, Terry.
Okay, thank you, Scott. And thank you to everyone for joining us in this joyous gathering. It has been so much fun. and interesting to hear everybody's stories. I do want to post a complaint posthumously to Mom that she drove Rex to school because I did not get to drive to school with her. I walked a mile to school through the snow, all uphill. Anyhow, I hadn't practiced this part, but Scott's memory is a profound one of Mom's final day. And I had the extreme blessing of being able to share a lot of time with Mom, especially over the past year. And I spent, about 10 days with her in February. And I would read her some of her writings, her memories from Conference Point Camp, her tales of growing up, her birthday letters that she would write to the kids about what her life was at the age that they were turning. And we laughed and reminisced. And every night when I would tuck her into bed, she would say to me, you know, I might not be here tomorrow. This could be my last night. And I said to her, Mom, if this was your last day, what would you like to have done? And she said, I would like to have the family here and laugh and tell stories and reminisce and enjoy one another. And that is what we did. So to celebrate my mother is to honor a very complex person. She was a resourceful problem solver who cared passionately about her family, the environment, and equality. And she was an exceptionally talented artist, writer, storyteller. Mom said that she'd been drawing ever since she could remember, and so art was an integral part of my childhood. Some of my earliest memories are of riding with her on the back of her bike through the Japanese rice paddies. She always had a sketchbook, and we would stop along the way and draw together. Art supplies were abundant in our home, and there were no rules as to what tools children should or could use. One Easter, when I was at most 5 years old, I awoke to find a C-shaped woodworking saw in my Easter basket. She taught us to use a sharp knife, and carving ivory soap together was an experience that she continued on to share with many of her grandchildren. Mom was known for her colorful attire, so today I'm wearing one of her very fun hats, and for my background, I've chosen a piece from her Life is a Carousel series. With the unexpected yet carefully matched pair of human and beast, she said that she was striving for an essence of timelessness, to transcend the present and the trite. Mom was the essence of timelessness, defying her age in her appearance and gumption, and surely she transcended the trite. She was my role model, my friend, my solace, my mentor, my inspiration. She raised me with the freedom to be and with the love to last my lifetime. 30 years separated us, and I would often fast forward my life to envision myself at her age. And you know what? It's all okay, and I am fine. I'm going to read a poem that Mom wrote in 2 stages of her life. The original was written in 1941 when she was 17, only a junior in high school. The addendum was written in 2010 when she was 86. The title is Time, Time, Immortal Time. Time, time, immortal time, you're far beyond our grasp. Could we but stop your fleeting hours, the joy of rest would soon be ours. For in the test of life one cowers as imprisonment of time embowers us tight within its clasp. O time, O heartless time, you slip so quickly past. The element of time guards steadily each new task one tries quite readily, and bars with fangs of venom deadly the fun and joy and work and medley of things we wish would last. Oh, time, immortal time. And then, almost 70 years later, she added, oh, time, elusive time, I'm caught within your web. Your threads entangled nights and days, do this, do that, hear yeas and nays from teachers, mentors, peers that craze. Forever I'm attuned to praise. I drift, you flow and ebb. Oh, time, you slippery time. Come now, how was I fed? You monitored, engulfed the years. Few fears, a leer, but many cheers. Terse tears, a sneer, but mostly dears. Just look, reflected in the mirrors, a smile. I've always said, that's how the piper led. See, nudging, grudging time. It's all okay, and you are fine. Thank you all for honoring my mother today. Back to you, Pastor Tom.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much for that memory. I'm going to conclude today with a final scripture and a few closing remarks and prayer. Our scripture is 1 Peter chapter 4, the 10th verse. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Typically at funerals and memorial services, I always end with just the affirmation that we have not really lost the person that we have celebrated today, because that person, in our case today, Herbie Naumann, lives on, not only in memories, but lives on in the ways in which her life has touched all of our lives, especially in her family and with her children. Herbie will not be forgotten and has touched the world and impacted the world in some very powerful ways that will remain. I want to just tell you very quickly that I take Herbie with me in my memento box because when I left after 11 years, the Pleasant Hill Community Church to take another ministry, the church made and had a great party for me and my family. And there was a program with that party. And the program had an outline of different events for the night, along with food and celebrations and so forth. But the cover of that bulletin was drawn by Herbie Naumann. And it was a picture of me, except it was through Herbie's eyes. And so it is a sketch, a wonderful sketch of me in my robe that I typically wear on Sunday mornings, in a pair of Converse high top sneakers, with a soccer ball in my one hand, Bible in the other. At that time, I was coaching soccer with my son, and a guitar slung over my shoulder. And the kicker of that picture is that she put on my head a mitre hat like the Pope. And so when I look at that, I see her genius, her creativity, her excitement, her joy in life. She pays attention to the people in her lives. She knew what I liked and what I loved. And she also gave me a little wink with the Pope's hat, saying, don't take yourself too seriously. Life is to be lived with a song and a joy. And so I will take Herbie with me in that small but profound piece that I carry with me from her. And I'm really grateful for that, that image that she has left with me. We will end with prayer, and then when the prayer is concluded, we will transition to a family sharing time. So Again, I want to thank everyone for the Naumann and Barrett family for including me, asking me to be a part of this wonderful time and wonderful memories to celebrate, even with the sadness of our loss, which is real. This has been a truly uplifting and celebratory event for me, and I trust for all of you. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for bringing me into this special time. So let us conclude with prayer. Let us pray. We take each day sometimes for granted. But as Herbie's life has reminded us, we must live each day to the fullest, to follow our paths, to be who we are and who we're called to be, to splash color broadly and widely, to reveal in the ways that we live the joy of life, the beauty of this world, even with its struggles and pains. And so we are thankful, oh God, for Herbie Naumann, your wonderful holy child, who indeed praised you through her life as only she could live it, and the ways in which she touched this world profoundly. Keep us strong, keep us living fully as Herbie showed us how to live. And so we pray with gratitude in our hearts in the name of Jesus Christ. We thank you for the passions and beauty of each moment in this life that we are given. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Tom. Here's to Herbie.
Hey.
Let's continue. Family and friends, let's continue. Now, if you're at the table at 28 North Wright Street or in the Uplands, I feel this is the part where we've had a great meal, and then Grandpa Bill gets up and sidles off to the kitchen, and he comes back with some ice cream. You remember those horribly small ice cream cups they would bring us? And those strange pink scoopers? Yeah, we have ice cream for everybody. So please stick around. A bit of what we'll go into next. First, I want to say thank you to Brittany and Doug for their great video or great photos to start this. That was fantastic. Brittany and Doug, thank you so much for that great work. Next, I'm going to tell you in advance, but first thing, we're going to get a video that Josh Kelman has put together, and you will thank him when it's done. So we're going to have a short Josh video that has been compiled from submissions from the family. And then Aunt Jan, if you can hear us, we want to hear your poem after Josh's video. And then after that, we have another song by Jan and Scott. This one, you may get insights into the 8 Barrett Naumann kiddos you might have not known before. And after that, we have Susan Rowe, who is a cousin of Grandma Herbie. She'll talk about the Gammer's Filter history. And then it's open mic, where we'll all get a chance to share some more. And at that point, I'll intro and I'll tell you how you can get in the queue to share your Grandma Herbie thoughts and love. So without further ado, let's jump into our video. Thanks so much for being here.
It's good to be here. Thank you all for coming to this reunion. You're an incredible family. It's
Right.
It's well, I end up without words, and that's kind of strange for me. Thank you for laughing.
This is the way the fun is right. Hobbledy-ho, 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 ho, 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 ho. What do you think? Did you like that?
And they never scrape them well on the cooking shows, so I do, but then I don't have. I told Bill, I said, what I need is a sous chef.
There you go.
How can I get a sous chef?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this certainly talk about 3 times as long as it should, but I had a good time. Did you have a good time, Jackson? Yeah. My college soccer coach said I was the best soccer dribbler that she'd ever had. Really? That's pretty neat. He's sitting there, he looks at me, and he says, I didn't know there was any boys in the class that could paint that well. And I sat there and I didn't say a word. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Herbie. Happy birthday to you. Oh, I didn't know we had such a handsome family. I just thought you were little tiny kids and you're all grown up. My goodness. Okay, bye. Love you. I love you too. Grandmother, friend, join the great mystery of creation. The grand, the minute, the infinite, the unknowable.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you, Josh. And there was an Easter egg in there. Did you guys see the small ice cream bowl Grandpa Bill was eating out of? It was in there. And Jan, we'd love to give you the mic to share your poem.
Okay. This is Aunt Jan, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. You're there.
Can you
Hey, we
hear
got
me?
connection. Let's hear it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
The following poem is one I remember Mom having memorized in her youth. She and Doris enjoyed reciting it for us. I wandered lonely as a cloud by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a cheerful company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth this show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Amen.
Thanks so much, Aunt Jan. And now that we know we have your audio, I'd like to ask Gary to wrap up how he would choose, because unfortunately we lost bits and pieces, but we did lose the end. So if he'd like to have the microphone.
Good.
All right, well, I don't know how much you all heard of the first part. But in any case, it was building up to the second part, which I'll read now. Few people achieve recognition beyond their small circles. Few people develop cures for disease, author great works, paint the Sistine Chapel, lead nations, invent breakthroughs, walk on the moon, or set world records. But embodying lasting human worth isn't restricted to just the great. The most dispiriting thing that I heard Mom say during her closing year was that she felt a failure that she had not accomplished whatever was her purpose in life. I was shocked by this assessment. Are you kidding? I wanted to say. Taking just one aspect, look at your participation in the cycle of life. Your children, all with successful lives themselves. Your grandchildren, all launched on successful lives as well. Your many great-grandchildren, all off to a great start. That wasn't enough, apparently. So what did she leave us? What values did she embody? Commitment and responsibility. One implies the other. Her commitment to the mission field, despite mounting problems antithetical to its spirit and teachings, her responsibility to her family, despite increased workload and having to do it alone, exemplify these traits of human value. When you commit to something, you're responsible to honor that commitment. Unfortunately, she never seemed to apply that to being on time. Peacemaker and forgiveness. Again, one implies the other. Years of endeavoring to save her first marriage give evidence to this. Or, on a more mundane level, what do you do to address sibling conflict over unequal access and consumption of with a half gallon of it? Mistakes and forgiveness. Mom did not hold mistakes over us. Making mistakes is part of living and an invaluable means to learning. I was the first to drive the family car, and I was the first to wreck it. She didn't make me feel a sinner when it happened, and she never held it over me. Self-development, an essential component of raising children. Mom kept us insulated from the problems of her first marriage, both before and after the fact, thereby encouraging our development in an environment free from that stress. She made a conscious effort not to influence our feelings about our biological father, but rather let them develop naturally. She freed us to develop our own interests and tolerated the resultant creative disorder, such as a room full of paper trails when I was into building roller coasters, or of little paper bus stop signs pasted to the baseboards all over the house when I was into driving toy buses. The leash on us was long, so we could expand our horizons by exploring our environment. Riding my bike halfway across prefecture at age 11, or Tokyo Bay landfill to build roads for toy cars. Well, maybe some of that was a little risky, I guess. Honesty toward others and toward self. The former is obvious, less so the latter. The need for realistic self-assessment and then the conduct to remain consistent. Mom encouraged it in us and she embodied it in herself. The professor's question about what a story says about lasting human worth elicits a subjective response. I'm not sure that we college kids fully understood that at the time. There's no one correct answer. I've tried to give my answer here. I hope that each of us can find in Mom's life sustenance for a good life, a life worth living. That's the end.
Thank you, Gary. I'm really glad we reconnected with you and Jan to hear both of your words. Thanks so much. All right, we're gonna ramp it up again. Song number 2, they're on for the encore. Jan and Scott, the floor is yours.
Yes, thanks.
Hi, everybody. I think it was Herbie and Bill's 40th anniversary when Scott and I, in our usual way, decided to write a song about all the 8 kids and what it was like when they all became one family. So it might have been emailed back in the day. I asked all 8 of them, tell me what it was like when you all joined the family together. And I heard back from Terry Lynn, and I heard back from Nancy, and the rest of them, we just had to go by stories I'd heard, and we put together this fun little song. that many of you have heard before.
And can sing along with us.
Sure. Are we ready? It was back in the 60s when Bill first met Herbie. Then life got a little crazy. Son Gary was oldest at 19 years of age, lived in the basement. Then life got a little crazy. 1 year with the Kinneys, old cars were really cool. Rex drove with no brakes, Gary in the basement, and life was a little crazy. Traveling through Europe to save a little cash, Bill never showered. Rex drove with no brakes, Gary in the basement, and life was a little crazy. All throughout Europe, Beirut and Canada, Scott's drunk again. Bill never showered, Rex no brakes, Gary down the stairs, and life was a little crazy. When he joined the new family, Terrence was shocked to find sibling with same name, and Scott's drunk again. Bill never showered, Rex no brakes, Gary down the stairs, and life was a little crazy. Her cat's in the closet, porch bedroom with no heat. Terry had bird legs, siblings with same name, Scott drunk again. Bill never showered, Rex no brakes, Gary down the stairs, and life was a little crazy. With big black rimmed glasses, new siblings all around, Nancy was nerdy. Terry had bird legs, sibling with same name, and Scott's drunk again. Bill still didn't shower, Rex no brakes, Gary down the stairs, and life was a little crazy. Picture this: big dinner table, tripe soup, and celery joes. Jeff was the baby, Nancy was nerdy, Terry had bird legs, sibling with same name, and Scott's drunk again. Bill never showered, Rex no brakes, Gary down the stairs, and life was a little crazy. Can you imagine how these kids got along? Gee whiz, how could they? Were you not listening? Jeff was the baby, Nancy was nerdy. Terry had bird legs, sibling with same name, and Scott's drunk again. Bill never showered, Rex no brakes, Gary down the stairs, and life was a little crazy. All these years later, this group's a family. Jeff's youth is envied. Nancy's a beauty. Terry's got hot legs. Terrence a doctor. Scott's drunk again. Bill cleans up with law. Rex good breaks. Gary's on the lake. And isn't life a little crazy? The end. Woo! I love you all.
Well done. Thank you so much. What a treat to hear that. Wonderful. All right. Susan Rowe. Susan is a cousin to Herbie Naumann, and we're going to learn some Gammersfelter history that I'm eager to hear. Susan.
Oh, hello, everybody. I love the family song that just will tickle me for a long time to come. I was Susan Rowe. I was born Susan Gammertsfelder, as Herbie was born Helen Gammertsfelder. And Herbie and my father were first cousins. My father was Carl Gammertsfelder, known as Jimmy to his Naperville relatives, and he was the oldest son of Carl Gammertsfelder Sr. This Carl, my grandfather, was a brother to Gordy and Judd and Ruth and Mabel, the children of Solomon and Emma Gammertsfelder. All through my childhood, I heard Herbie spoken of in our home with a lot of affection. Clearly, she was my dad's favorite cousin, but our visits to Naperville were rare. And my first clear memory of Herbie was as an adult at Great Aunt Ruth's memorial service, which was over 30 years ago. At that time, Herbie impressed me as being a very warm and lively person. Then after Herbie and Bill moved to Tennessee, I was living in Pennsylvania. My dad had passed away. My mom was living in Knoxville. And when I visited my mom, we would go to visit Bill and Herbie once a year. We would drive over. My mom and Herbie were the same age, and my mom loved the conversations with the two of them. Lively, interesting conversations full of questions and philosophical thought, and my mom relished them, and I just would listen enraptured while my elders carried on for the afternoon. All of Herbie's stories entranced me of raising the 8 kids and of traveling all over the world. One of those early visits with my mom, when Herbie was showing us through the house, we were leaving a bedroom, and I suddenly asked, is that chest of drawers an old family piece? And she quickly said, yes, it is. In fact, I've been holding it for you all these years. You said you wanted it at Ruth's memorial, remember? Could you take it now? And I was dumbfounded. I didn't remember it. I said, yes, we could take it now. And she started emptying her things out of the drawers and hauled it out to the car for us. But more than the family artifacts that Herbie gave me, she gave me my Gammertsfelder history. Really came a lot from Herbie. She gave me precious stories of these Gammertsfelder people that I really didn't know. She shared her grandmother, Emma, with me. Emma was my great-grandmother. One of the stories she told me about Emma was about how after Ruth moved out, Emma did the laundry herself. Now, she lived in a big old Victorian house in Naperville, with a lot of floors to it. Herbie said that she would gather the things to be washed by throwing them down the stairs and down the stairs from landing to landing. Even the stairs to the basement had a landing. Herbie said she remembered the laundry being loose and items floating around. I love that picture. She also gave me stories that she had grown up hearing about my grandfather, Carl, who died before I was ever born. Carl, she said Carl was the rascal of the family, and that as a youth, he accomplished such exploits as walking on his hands over a bridge that had a rickety high arch with a wooden rail. He also shimmied up all 5 stories of the old main building at North Central College, up the downspout, over the edge of the hanging roof with its eaves, and nearly to the top when the gutter started giving way, and he had to climb back down. She also shared her own memories of my father as a young man. He was 11 years older than her, and she was fond of him as he was of her. She shared how my dad and his brother Royce played basketball up in the attic of Emma's house, that big old Victorian house, and that down in the basement, the brothers had a fascinating setup where they worked on models and radios and inventions, and that the girl cousins like Herbie loved being invited to come down and join them. So she made these people come alive. Those are just a few of the stories she shared for me, but I have a deep attachment to the past, and Herbie was just a big part of bringing that to life for me. She also is the one who passed on to me from Karen Kinney the scores of beautiful courtship letters that Solomon and Emma Gammertsfelder wrote to each other over the years before they got married. They were like gold to me, and I transcribed them and gave Herbie a printed copy, and she read that with real appreciation. We were able to talk about that a lot. In 2015, my mother passed away, and Herbie and Bill drove over to Knoxville for her memorial service, which meant a great deal to me. She was always interested in my children and in my grandchildren, and in my thoughts and in my feelings. And I found that I could talk to Herbie about anything, and she made me feel seen and heard. Herbie was a friend to me, and she was like a sister and an aunt and a mother all rolled into one. She was a precious connection for me to my family roots, and a vibrant, loving, fascinating person in my own life, and I will miss her forever. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Susan, for sharing. Thank you for passing along these stories, as I know you will. We sure appreciate your part of this evening. All right, as promised, here's the ice cream time. Let's keep going. Open chance for family, friends to share in celebration of Herbie Naumann. So there's a couple ways to do it. One, drop your name in the chat. Two, if you go down to the reactions button on your screen, you can raise a hand. Or three, just wave at us, and we will gladly call you out. So I'm not seeing anyone yet. However, it could be on the way. So free time to share. So Erica, I see your name. Sister Erica, you're up.
Okay, can we hear me now?
We got you.
All right, I am here today in my Grandma Herbie original outfit, which Larkin so wonderfully sent. My kids have stepped away for a minute, but they were each wearing a pin or a hat, and we all had a Grandma Herbie treasure on us. I tried to prop up my favorite Grandma Herbie art piece behind me because I couldn't figure out how to make it virtual, like some of y'all did, but here it comes. Ready? Grandma Herbie painted, or not painted, but made me on a cow as a little girl. Still one of my favorite pieces. And I have tons of her work around the house here and there that I've been so lucky to have. I don't know how she was as magical as she was. I don't know how going to her house was always magical. I don't know how every treasure she had in her house was magical. I feel like someday my kids will be like, hey, who wants mom's Target lamp? But everything she had was glorious. And I have treasures all over my house. Used to be when I would go to grandma's house, she would say, pick a treasure, any treasure. And I would pick one. And she would say, oh, not yet, not that one. But sometimes I would score one. But most recently, my parents brought me several, and Larkin sent a special box just for us. And I don't know how it's all magical, but it is. So my most vivid childhood, well, not most, I shouldn't say that, but one story I remember from when I was little, I was probably less than 10. She told me that if a mosquito bites you and you don't itch it at all, ever, it'll go away in 10 minutes. And I had since then 30 years to ponder on that, and I never was successful. But just this week, with grandma on my mind, I got a mosquito bite and I didn't itch it. And I accidentally scratched it like one tiny time, but I didn't itch it. And I promise you, it went away. Like it would bump and then it was gone and it's not itchy. So you guys, she knew what she was talking about. Of course she did. I don't know why it took me 30 years from her story to figure it out. But again, she's completely magical and my most favorite human beings on the whole planet. So I'm happy to be here with y'all today. Thank you, Dan, for being in charge. That's all.
Thanks, Erica. My kids, I heard that mosquito bite story too, and I also affirm, if you don't scratch it, it won't itch. So you got 2 votes of approval. And I heard you say a word in there that makes me think of Herbie. You said the word glorious. I would love when Grandma Herbie would say, glorious. So, well, nice word drop, Erica. All right, who do we have next? Either drop a name, wave a hand, raise a virtual hand. And if I don't see you, unmute yourself and chime in. Like Mike's raising a kid. Mike, does that count?
Yeah, I wasn't fast enough. I'll share just a brief story here while I have a minute. We lived downstairs for a number of years from grandpa, and we would go upstairs for dinners, and they would come downstairs for babysitting. And I always remember it being a very colorful event going upstairs because of the carpeting. There were the patchwork of colorful carpeting going from our unit on the first floor up to their unit on the second floor. So I always looked forward to going to dinner because I would step on different colors as I ran up the stairs. And then also, I remember asking her when we got upstairs for dinner, what, something would be bubbling away in the crock pot or on the stove. And I'd say, what is that? And she would say, well, I don't know, and because she never knew what, she just threw stuff in a pot and stuff from the garden out by the garage and whatever she had around. And it was always amazing, no matter what it was. So I would keep asking, and she keeps saying, I don't know. And I always loved that about her. And one little thing recently, we have gotten a few pieces of her art, and I took it to a framer here in Naperville. And there were some paintings on the wall, and they were done by somebody with the last name of Listen. And then I put the prints of hers down on the table, and she said, were these done by Herbie Naumann, the lady at the counter? And I said, yeah. Do you know her? And she said, yeah, I was in the art league with her. My name's Mary Ann Kuhn, and my maiden name is Listen. And I said, oh, did you do some of these on the wall? She said, yeah. So she asked about, where she was, and I told her that she had recently passed away, her and Bill. But it was cool to see her impact, just ripples out into the world, like everybody has said here today. So that was kind of fun for me.
That's awesome. Thanks, Mike. Great to see your family jostling around over there. So I got a queue. I have Cindy, then Wayne, then Pat. So keep the raises coming to Cindy. The floor is yours.
Hello. I had to go grab one of the pieces of art that I have. Very voluptuous belly dancer that she used to sketch at North Central. I've got another one on the wall that is a little bit tamer, but I love these because I think I was embarrassed about them when I first got them way back. You can tell by the orange matting what era that was. That probably was the avocado green and harvest gold kind of time. But anyway, I wanted to just say, I have so many memories. One of the things I say to people now is that we all think we're so responsible when we recycle and compost and all those things. And they were doing that, from the beginning of time. So that's kind of funny. But I also remember times of playing around the table ping pong and how fun that was, especially with Jan Barrett. It was crazy. But anyway, the whole family coming together. And I remember this was also really hard for her because it was, she had a feminist, I was going to say streak, but part of herself, because that was the time. And suddenly she was a mom of 8 kids, which was totally against where she really wanted to be. She didn't want to be just the homemaker and so on. So I think she put a good spin on her individuality as well as being a mom. In later years, I just want to say that every time I saw her and I got a hug, it's the kind of hug that goes, it's not like a quick squeeze. It's a hug that goes straight to your heart and you feel loved all the way around. So, excuse me, but such a special person to me, and she'll always be my mother, I guess. Anyway, a special woman. So thank you for letting me share. Sorry for the tears.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. So we have a few more. We have Susan, who shared in the chat some beautiful words. I believe we had Wayne waving at us. Wayne, are you out there? And we'd love to give you the floor.
Wayne, were you not waving? We thought we saw you waving at us. No? Just stretching, maybe.
You're good, bud.
Hey, everybody.
I know.
I'm not sure you're really on. I don't know.
We hear you, Wayne. We hear you. We'd love to have you share if you choose. We lost you again.
You hear me?
Yes, we got you now.
Okay. Well, she was just a wonderful person to be around. The only thing that really strikes me is one day she was over here at my house and there was this ton of acorns. It was one of those bumper crop years. And she was walking across the yard and she was rolling on the acorns. She was just, I used to have her over for dinner parties a lot. And she just always told the most wonderful stories. Of course, Bill would always walk off and leave her there so we had to take her home. But she was just a wonderful, special person. And because of what I did for an occupation, I got to spend a lot of time with her until the end. And I mean, what else can I say? She was just, I know there's a story I have to tell. There was a time and talent auction and she knew I wanted one of her drawings. So she said, well, I'm going to put this one in the time and talent auction and nobody's going to want it. You'll get it for $20, $25. I said, okay, great. Well, the auction commenced and I got in a bidding war with Don Clark and ended up paying $250 for this drawing. But that's
a
all right.
bargain, Wayne.
Yeah,
that's a bargain, brother. Wow, thanks so much. I can imagine Bill wandering off, and he went to start doing the dishes. That guy was just, I can always picture him cleaning. Thank you, Wayne. I sure appreciate your kind
You're
words.
welcome. It's good to see you all.
Thank you. Next, we have Pat, and keep the names coming through. After Pat, we're ready for more.
Hi, my name's Pat Harley, and I moved to Uplands 3 years ago. So I've only known Herbie a short while, and I probably spent the most time with her in this last year. And while in many ways her last year wasn't her best year, in other ways it was terrific. And I think the single thing I remember most, I took some dinner up to her sometime in maybe late February or early March, and she was in Wharton nursing homes, well actually in memory care, and I took her up some sausage and fried onions, and I fed her a mouthful of fried onions, and she just lay back like she had been given communion. There's no other way, and said fried onions. They don't use enough onions here. She was still able to find joy in all of the littlest things in life. And that's who she was, I think, at least the whole time I knew her, and listening to all these stories. And of course, I was honored to be able to meet many of her children the week they came to see her in March. So what a joy to know not only this wonderful woman, but to get to know, at least for brief periods, her children. Probably her best work of art. And that's all.
Thank you, Pat. That was beautiful and very kind. In the onion story, we were a part of the Uplands Thanksgiving last few years, and Herbie would always bring her onions. And man, she would work for hours on those onions. So you're right. She was always craving onions. They're phenomenal. And there's a few other folks that brought onions too, but grandmas were top notch. So all right, thanks so much. Hey friends, we got some more ice cream. We're ready. We have some more scoops if you like. Who else are out there? And Anne, I see you in Vermont.
Hi, everybody. Just a couple different things. We're way up here in Vermont. We're away from everybody, but Bill and Herbie would come every summer when we were up at camp at the lake, and they would come, and our kids were small, and they were both just so present with our small kids. They were in their 70s, and Bill would be crawling around on the floor with Alex, and Herbie would arrive with her soap and her knives, and they would all carve soap. And then we would be slowly using that up during the year. They were just always very present. Alex would be on the dock talking away in his gibberish, and Grandpa Bill would just go, uh-huh, mm-hmm, oh, really? And they were just really there, which was really wonderful. And whenever we would go somewhere with Herbie, she would sit with her sketchbook, and she would draw like 2 lines, and you knew what she was drawing. It was just amazing what she could create. And she was often, as they were walking out the door, somebody would have gotten a drawing from her of them, and well, I didn't get a drawing, and so she would sit down and do a drawing right there, which was wonderful. And I just want to tell a story. I think I told this at one of the other family gatherings, but when I first met Terry, I met him in September, and in October, he invited me home for Christmas with him. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I knew his dad was a minister. I knew he lived in the Midwest. I figured this was a very conservative household. So that's what I expected. And when I walked in the first time, I walked up those colorful stairs that Mike talked about. And I walked in the hallway, and there were nudes everywhere you looked. And I was like, oh my God. And there was a yak rug on the floor, and there was what looked to me like a big bong in the corner. I think it was actually a water pipe from Turkey. But I thought, oh my. And I spent a good part of a day trying to figure out where to put my eyes, because everywhere I looked, there were nudes. And it took me about a half a day to realize that nobody else saw them anymore. And we now have many of Herbie's nudes at our house. And I didn't really realize that we don't really see them anymore until Jesse was about 11. And I heard this conversation. We had a birthday party, and I heard this conversation in the dining room. One of Herbie's nudes was up there, and I heard one of the kids say to Jesse, dude, who's that? About this nude drawing. And he meant to say, oh, my grandmother did that. But instead he said, that's my grandmother. And this kid goes, that's your grandmother? So we became full circle where, we didn't see them either, but we still have them. And I will say, just while I'm at it, just because we're so far away, my kids don't have a lot of Herbie's art. So if there are some smaller pieces around that, I know that Jesse and Alex would both love to have a little something. If there's a way to get them that would be great. Thanks, everybody. She was pretty special. So was Bill.
Thank you, Anne. Love the stories. Love the stories. All right, we're scrolling through. We'd love to have more if you choose. If I don't see you waving, just unmute and share. It's okay to sit in this. Grandma, in her beautiful storytelling, also could enjoy a peaceful silence. So sit in this for a moment. It's a beautiful time we're having together. Thank you, family.
Okay.
Thank you, friends.
You're up.
I see some waving. Awesome.
Me?
You got it, Jen. Yes, Mom.
Okay. I really don't have anything to say other than the beautiful, beautiful stories we've been listening to, and that slideshow, the video show, all of it. All I wanted to say was that I really loved her a lot. Many, many years of loving Herbie and her kids and this family. So I'm just enjoying being here with you all.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to say is, well, we've talked about Mom being just a marvelous storyteller. And we grew up with Mom telling stories. We would have friends over and we'd have taffy pulls and Mom was always singing and telling stories. One of the favorite series, it was a never-ending story. It was about a brother and sister named Oscar and Nellie Bell.
Oh.
And well, one thing I want to say is that all right, wait.
Lost you, Terry.
Could you hear any of that?
Last we heard is the introduction of Oscar and Nellie Bell, and then you went dark.
So the thing about Oscar and Nellie Bell that I just always assumed everyone knew, but was very surprised, Dan, that you didn't know, was that Oscar and Nellie Bell were modeled after Scott and me, your own father. And anyhow, Oscar and Nellie Bell, their adventures mimicked exactly what was going on in Scott's and my life. We learned lessons and had support in like challenges of childhood, like going to school for the first day. Oscar and Nellie Bell, or Oscar or Nellie Bell, would have their first day of school and Mr. Rumpelstiltskin would be in their pocket. And anyhow, it was just a wonderful, creative, endless story that Mom always wanted to publish and illustrate. And she was never able to do that, but she did send her stories to the grandkids, and so they will continue to live on through the grandkids.
Thanks for bringing up Oscar and Nellie Bell. What a treat it was to be Herbie and to hear the next installment of Oscar and Nellie Bell. Thank you. All right, cousin Kendra, cousin to me, granddaughter Kendra, and then we can wrap because I have no other names on the list, but we got more waving hands. We'll keep going. But Kendra, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. It's great to see everybody. I wasn't going to talk really because I'm not a public speaker and I get nervous when I talk, but I'm wearing this charm necklace that Grandma gave me. And as someone was talking earlier, this hand here fell off my charm necklace. So I took it as a sign that I should say something. But we made these charms, this charm necklace for Grandma a long time ago. I know Larkin and I contributed. I don't know if anybody, probably other cousins contributed, but it was something that Grandma really treasured. But I was thinking about a lot of memories that we had as growing up. And of course, around the table ping pong was a big thing. Wrapping treasures in her basement. That was a big thing. They were, again, like as Dan said something, I think it was Dan said something about the treasures, or somebody else, but Erica said this thing about the treasures. Grandma's house was filled with treasures, and it could have been something from something that was a box of rocks or something, up to some kind of jewelry. But we would always find treasures and we would wrap the treasures. And I don't remember exactly what we did with these treasures other than unwrap them, as we were wrapping them. So it was a lot of fun to do that. I also remember camping with Dan and Erica in her yard growing up. And we found so many special memories of going into the attic and going upstairs and creating songs and skits and what was that Herman thing that we used to do. I'm sure Larkin and Dan remember why, well. So so many memories. It's not enough time to talk, but those were a few of mine that I remember pretty well. So love you all. Good to see everybody. Hope we see each other in the future in person sometime. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Kendra. That was Herman, my favorite mountain lion,
That's right.
as you guys remember. Yes. Wonderful. We have Larry up. Larry, thank you so much for sharing. I can't hear you yet.
Adam, you need to unmute me.
We don't hear you, Larry. We're working on it. Doesn't. Now give it a try. No. It does not say you're muted, yet we cannot hear you. I'm sorry. We got any whizzes out there to help Larry out? I'm sorry, Larry. I don't know what to do. But if you'd like to share in the chat, we'd love to hear your words. And as we work on that, I'm sorry, Larry. No.
I need to unmute him and which, I mean, I'm not the
It
controller.
doesn't show that he's muted. Well,
So I
as
think
we work on
Larry,
that, we
wait a
have.
minute, Dan, Larry, can you look down in the left-hand corner of your screen and find the thing that looks like a microphone? Can you see that? And then to the right of that microphone, there's a little like arrow up. See if you can click that. Are you with me? And then if you do, oh, there, now we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry for the delay. Technology escapes me. I'm Larry Birch. I live in Uplands Meadow. Larkin and her family visited here to stay in the house of their house, and the water was off, and I assisted them in getting a place where they could get showers or whatever. So the real story is I wanted to say that Herbie's love for music or for art has passed down through generations. So I'm going to try to show you a picture the two kids gave me when Larkin's children gave me when they left, thanking me for sharing a house where they could get showers. Can you see it? That's Helen's.
Yes.
Okay. And here is Jackson's.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I will treasure them forever, and I will probably sell them in several years and make a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I'm sure glad we got your connection figured out. So that's great grandkid art of Herbie. Very well done, Helen, Claire, and Jackson. That's fantastic. I have a few more names. I have Gail and Barbara. Gail, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Gail.
I just loved Herbie so much and loved Bill so much. And to me, Herbie was like my best friend. And I feel like I'm not the only person that felt that way, which is great. And I'm nervous. I can't say. I don't know what to say except how much I appreciate your doing this and how much I love both of them very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. That's beautiful. Isn't it amazing that we all know that you felt like a best friend to so many of us, right? That's
yeah,
beautiful.
I think so.
Yeah. Barbara, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, yeah, thanks very much. I actually shared this story with Terry when she was on campus recently. I'm a neighbor, my husband and I are neighbors to Bill and Herbie, and I always admired her, the things she would do in the sanctuary at church to add visual elements. Somewhere along the line, I got involved in working with Herbie doing that. She was still very much in charge and knew very much what she wanted done. My role was primarily moving the ladder in place. And this is not a little bitty step ladder. This is like an 8-foot step ladder. And so it was up the top, I was the one hanging the banner. So I'd up the ladder, hang the banner where she wanted it, down, move the ladder out of the visual range, while Herbie looked at it that way and then went a little bit this way in the sanctuary and then maybe another place in the sanctuary and looked at it and then would say, well, let's move it, just a little bit more to the left. So back would go the ladder, up would go, go through the whole, well, we probably did this, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 times. And before she'd finally say, well, let's go back to and describe the particular position that she had decided she liked the best. And so it was back up the ladder to reposition the banner. I mean, it was great fun. It was amusing too, but it was just like she wanted to check out the options before making a decision. Any of them could have worked, but she wanted to just evaluate before making a decision. So we had lots of fun and I learned a lot. And for several years now, when it was probably a good idea for Herbie not to be too much involved with ladder moving and positioning, I sort of inherited the mantle of kind of being primarily responsible for visuals in worship service. But if I do anything decent, it's because I learned it from Herbie. And I'm grateful for that.
I love that. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Well, part of my intro was 35 great-grandchildren and counting. If everyone scrolls over to Aunt Nancy and Uncle Breck, you'll see the count has grown to 36. Please unmute, Nancy Breck. Tell us who you got.
This is Thomas Washington Frank. He's is he a day old yet?
He'll be a day old in 25 minutes.
What number great grandchild?
Do we know what number?
36, Dan said.
I believe 36. I could be off in there, but he's definitely the newest. Congratulations, Marty and Lindsay. Oh, and there's Galilee. Hi, Galilee. Congratulations, big sister. That's great. What a joy. What a joy. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the surprise. It's wonderful. All right. Well, this has been fantastic. I don't want to slow anybody down. We have all the time in the world. If there's any more that would love to share, wave at us, name in the chat. If I don't see you, jump in. All right. And Aunt Karen has suggested a song, a So Long song. Karen, can you help us understand that song? Maybe lead us as we say goodbye.
I'm not going to lead. That's not my job, but my job is to tell the story about the song. So when we did the interment service at Uplands, I think a couple of weeks ago now, we ended the service where we put Aunt Herbie and Uncle Bill's ashes in the ground with singing this song, and we taught it to everyone at Uplands. So Gail, I hope that you and the others who were there then will help us. And Terry, I'm hoping that you will, as you did 2 weeks ago, lead us in this song. But the story with the song is that our family back, I don't know if it started with our grandparents or beyond them, worked at a camp in Wisconsin, Conference Point Camp. And Grandma and Grandpa were up there working for 30 years, 35 years, I don't know how many years. And they raised their 3 daughters in the summertime at this camp. And we all would go visit Grandma and Grandpa and spend a week with them, staying in their cabin when we were young. And then when I was in junior high, my mom decided she wanted my 2 sisters and me to experience being there as camp family. And one of the things that camp family does is sing a song of goodbye to everybody that's at the camp on Sundays at lunchtime, because they leave Sunday afternoon then. And so our family grew up singing this, and we've sung it at other memorial services for Grandma, Grandpa, Aunt Ruth, and my mom when she passed. And we wanted to continue the tradition here today. So Terry, could you please unmute yourself and give us that harmonic pitch that we all need? And we could sing it. Everybody who knows the song, please sing it with us. And it could be chaotic if we're all unmuted, and maybe it's better if we're chaotic. I don't know.
Actually, I think I can share the words. Oops, not that. Oh, you're not seeing it anyway. Just a moment. No. Let me get, let's see.
I know we kind of sprung, Terry. Thank you.
Let's see. I'm looking for the music. I mean, not the music, but bear with me a moment here. The lyrics to the song. Oh, communal service with song. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Maybe share screen. Oh, okay, here we go. All right, so here's the song. And this is rather spur of the moment, and it will start off key, but as Larkin said, maybe that's appropriate. So please join me in the So Long, We'll See You Again song. So long, we'll see you again someday. For after all, this world is small, we'll meet along life's way. Good luck to you, God bless you too, but not goodbye, we'll say. So long, we'll see you again someday. All together now. So long, we'll see you again someday. For after all, this world is small, we'll meet along life's way. Good luck to you, God bless you too, but not goodbye, we'll say. So long, we'll see you again someday.
Thank you, Terry.
Wow. Thank you, Terry.
Did anyone else
That was
sing?
beautiful. Yes.
Or was it just me? It was a trick.
No,
it was a trick.
did.
We sung in our own spot.
That's what I said.
Thank you. Well, it feels appropriate to
Wait.
say so long.
Wait.
Wait. We can wait. I'm hearing a wait. I'm not seeing a hand. Oh, Bud. I see Bud waving.
Yes.
You got it.
You got it.
So I want to tell a little story about one of the trips that Herbie made to visit us when Ginger was about 5 years old. We were living in Pune at that time. Our house was surrounded by undeveloped lots, and not to mention just having the jungle right next to us. We also had a koi pond. So between those two elements, one nature and one unnatural or man-made, the mosquito population on our property was, I don't even know what, there is no word for it, but it was to the point where you could not be outside without having a half a dozen citronella candles burning, mosquito coils, if anyone knows what those are, or even if the most drastic would be to spray insect repellent on your skin. So the first day that Herbie arrived, or the first morning after she arrived, she noticed that we had a swing set in the backyard, and Ginger wanted to take her out and share the experience of swinging. So after a few minutes, I went out and joined them, and Herbie was walking around in circles, trying to swat mosquitoes with her hand. And it was pretty much unsuccessful, or
Gosh,
she was.
so much for the 15-minute rule.
Oh, on my story?
No.
Oh, the 50. Oh, yes.
The mosquito.
Yeah,
bite.
so anyway, so I said, Herbie, you need to put on some insect repellent. Here, I'll go get it. She said, oh no, you can't use that dang stuff on me. And she actually used the word dang. And then she proceeded to tell me what were all the wrong reasons why she would not use and we should not use insect repellent. So I said, well, there's another option. I can bring out a mosquito coil and set it here on the lawn on a plate so that you won't have to spend your time out here swatting mosquitoes, and you can sit next to Ginger and swing. Well, Ginger said, oh no, she's not going to swing. She's going to push me. And so Ginger and I had a game that we played when she was on the swing, and it was called sneak attack. And so I would push her with her legs straight out. And then when she was not expecting it, I would grab her by the ankles and stop, and she would just break into laughter. So Herbie thought, well, okay, so the mosquitoes don't seem that bad. Now I think I'll try sneak attack. And she proceeded to play sneak attack with Ginger for over an hour, but she did complain about the smoke and the smell of the mosquito coils. So I went into my workshop, and I took a little mosquito repellent holder and I put it on a little strap, and I came out and I said, here, let's try this. And there was a lit mosquito coil inside the can. And if anyone knows what I'm talking about, it's a little metal plate basically that holds the mosquito coils when you buy them at the store, and they're in the box. But I configured it and put some holes in it so that the smoke would leak out. And I went out and I attached it to her belt. And she walked around the yard and seemed like she was in jungle heaven. Like, oh, there's no mosquitoes. Look, this is wonderful, wonderful. You should invent this and you could probably sell 1 million of these. Anyway, it was pretty hilarious because every day while she was there on that trip, she would get her little, make sure she had her belt on, and she would go find the thing, and she'd have me light it for her, and she would put the lid on, and she and Ginger would go down the steps and traipse out to the swing set, and they would stay out there sometimes for hours. And she'd finally come in and say, well, I wasn't getting any more smoke out of this, so I thought I better come in before I get a mosquito bite. But I'm okay. If I get bit by a mosquito bite, as long as I don't scratch it, it'll go away in 15 minutes. So that's my mosquito story.
Well done, bud. 3 instances of mosquito story. We believe it. That is great. Well, this has been a treat. Ginger, do you remember this game? This sneak attack game? Okay. I can use that on my kids. I like that. Well, this has been a treat, everybody. And Nancy's waving. Thank you, guys. This has been a treat.
I think they're done then.
Oh, Nancy's gonna talk.
I just want to be more like Herbie and Bill. And I know that a lot of us have that same desire. So it's a privilege and a joy to be a part of this family, to have this friend group here.
I'll tell you.
And if there's anyone else who'd love to share, we'd love to hear it. Otherwise, we're going to wind this down. And I'll be thankful for the moments we had together. In this moment, I'm very thankful for the moments we've had with Herbie and with Bill, the family they have put together. Thank you all.
I want to ask a question.
Well, you can ask.
Oh, so when and where is the next family reunion?
Ooh.
I think we should have it at Lindsay and Marty's.
Oh, yeah. Tomato Island, right?
I agree.